Hey there guys, so I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's video. So I know it's been a little bit of time since the last video I did because I'd been traveling for a little bit. I, of course, have been a little bit late on some uploads, and also too, some of my live streams I've kind of been delayed as well, but we'll return to doing those. If you guys are interested in the fitness information that I share, those will return in the coming week. But what I wanted to talk about today is, of course, the trip that I went on. So this is basically the video that I would have shared on Saturday, as I usually do with these particular videos where I share more of my personal story. However, of course, I had to wait because there was so much stuff going on, and I actually didn't return home or return back until basically yesterday. So it was a little bit late last night that I returned. But I was really excited to share this video with you guys and sort of share my experience with being back out in Los Angeles from where I was 5 years ago, because I was last in Los Angeles about 5 years ago, and it was in 2020. Well, actually, it's 5 to 6 years. It was 2020 when I had actually moved out there. And what's funny is when I looked at my memories on my Facebook, it was almost the same time. So it's kind of weird that I didn't really intentionally plan it. Usually I do a lot of times plan in June because I do go to Pride events. That I have went to Pride events in June. But it's weird because a lot of my memories were around the same time. But anyways, so yes, I did fly out there. I stayed out there for about 6 days. And of course, I stayed with some of my old roommates that I had out there. And we were able to reconnect and really speak to each other. And again, go deeper into, what that time was like before and sort of the kind of challenges we had. But overall, it was such an amazing time. It was a time that I needed because over these past 5 years, I've really restricted myself a ton. And like I said, I didn't really travel. I had went and traveled with my family here and there. But as far as going on my own, traveling anywhere, this was, of course, the first time I'd actually done that. And of course, I was really excited to go back to LA, even though I used to try to deny that I didn't like LA for a lot of reasons, because a lot of times people do downplay LA in a lot of ways. And so I was always afraid to say if I liked the city or not. I know that sounds weird, but that was just kind of the way I approached it. But it was a really fun trip. Of course, the main reasoning why I went to, LA was to go to West Hollywood Pride, which, if you're not aware, West Hollywood is like the largest sort of population when it comes to anybody that is LGBTQ. So it's the largest population out there, as far as in Los Angeles. So that experience in itself was really crazy. It was a little bit overwhelming for me because I had not been in that environment for not not necessarily the environment, but being around a ton of people all at once. And what I found was interesting when I went is that before, when I would go to some of these large events, especially, when you have big crowds, and this was a massive amount of people that were there. You had a whole complete street, of people that were going to this Pride event. And what I found was interesting is usually my anxiety would be really bad. Now, my anxiety was a little bit hectic, or a little bit sort of crazy when we were going into certain places and you kind of had to squeeze through. It was that packed in certain places. And so that was a little bit overwhelming. But other than that, I was pretty surprised at how I handled things. Because normally a lot of things like that make me anxious. But I always try to put myself in those uncomfortable situations so that I can really experience more things. I try to do that as often as I can, even when it's hard. Because, like I said, I'm very much an introvert when it comes to a lot of things. But this event in itself is always something that's important to me. There's a lot of meaning behind it, and that's why I've always been so excited, normally for this time of year, especially. So, I did also go to basically a music festival that was at the same area as where this Pride event was, and it was called Outloud, was the music festival, and this had a ton of different musicians. It was a wide range of musicians, but the main headliners was, of course, the Pussycat Dolls, Ava Max, Jade, um, and there were a ton of others that were there. That it was really cool because I've never really went to a music festival in particular, so it was really fun to have Pride and then you have Out Loud, the music festival, all in one. And it was such an fun environment, and it was nice to be with friends. It was nice to reconnect and, really reunite with them. And it was, too, very nice because I was able to meet new people. Um, that, of course, my close friend and my roommate, who I was with in LA, I was able to actually meet some of his friends, and it was such a really fun time. It was very relaxing and calming, even if it was kind of crazy with a lot of people around. It was a fun experience, and again, it was so nice because I didn't feel as anxious as I normally would in that environment. And this was like a 3 day, event. I mean, it was we pretty much went all of those days. And so it was just really, again, it was like a full fledged event. But another thing, too, I want to mention is that one of the reasons why I took this trip was not only for the aspect of, reconnecting and actually seeing old friends and seeing, my older roommates, I should say, old friends and roommates, but being able to sort of refresh, to reconnect. Because, like I said, I feel like I had placed myself in a bubble in a lot of ways. And so I felt like this was something that was necessary. And I think, too, at the same time, it was allowing me to think more about what I want to do moving forward. Where do I want my life to go, and what direction do I want to take it? And so that's what I felt like this trip was. The main significance behind it was that in itself was a lot of the reasons why I planned it was to think about what I wanted to do in the future. And I think it did, again, refresh my mind and really gave me a chance to think about what I need to do. Also, something that was interesting whenever I was on this trip is I had my roommate, he had showed me some movies. And like I've mentioned, movies and music, of course, is something I've always shared on this channel. And he showed me a movie that was very much connected to my current situation, which I thought was very interesting. And it was called The Hours. If you're not aware of this movie, it has Julianne Moore in it. It has, of course, Nicole Kidman. And I was trying to think of all of the names. as well as Meryl Streep. So it basically centers around these three female characters where sort of their lives are interconnected. And the whole messaging behind this film was basically about not letting everything else around you, try to control your decision making in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a little bit deeper than that, as far as discussing that movie. But I felt like it was so interesting, and it connected with me in a lot of ways when I watched that film. And, he said he wanted me to watch it for a reason. And it was just, it was just such a nice experience. It was a really fun experience. Like I said, I've always enjoyed being out there. To me, it releases a lot of pressure. Even though LA can be pretty hectic, it can be crazy, it can be overwhelming. But to me, the city environment. It's always been something I've always dreamed about. Like, I used to make journal entry writings from school, and I have a ton of them that I found a few weeks ago, even before I took this trip. And a lot of it, I was talking about going to the city, doing this and that. And this was back when I was in high school. So, a lot of this in traveling to the city and things like that is not something that just happens on a whim for me, or something that I happen to do on a whim. And it has been a dream of mine to live in that type of area. And I know that's not for everybody, but to me, especially for what I'm trying to pursue and what I'm trying to accomplish, I do feel a lot of ways that environment can bring more opportunities, if that makes sense. But again, I'm thinking about the next steps moving forward. And I've had a lot of reactions about some of the photos that I've shared. And, I really appreciate you guys for sharing your thoughts. I do, again, appreciate all of the feedback, all of just the positive compliments, and everything you guys have shared. I hope that it's not only just about sharing my story, but about how you can go out there and share your story. And that's why I, again, do this. It is not particularly, of course, I enjoy sharing my story, but I think it's important for us to really go outside of, those barriers that we sort of put around ourselves and experience more. So that's pretty much all I want to discuss with you guys today. Again, I really appreciate your time. I will likely share another video where, I'd found some of the journal entries that I wrote, and likely share some of those with you guys. I thought that was interesting that I come across those, because I didn't realize they were still had them here. But I'll definitely share those in a future video, likely. But with all that being said, guys, as always, I really appreciate you guys and your support. The channel is continuing to grow, and like I said, I'm going to really get back into the rhythm of things since I am back pretty much in my new normal routine. And again, guys, if there's anything that you would like me to discuss when it comes to these topics and stories, feel free to reach out. And anything else you would like me to touch on, even outside of this topic, feel free to let me know. But with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time, and we'll see you guys in the next one.